I've been out of town the last couple weeks. Last week I was here in church, and then last weekend I was hunting successfully. That's all I'll say about that. But anyway, so I wasn't here last weekend, but I listened to Scott online. As I'm listening to Scott online, I was reminded of an example of what a horrible person I am. That's not because of Scott. It's just because I'm just not a good person. I try to tell you this all the time. I'm not a good person. Some of you think I'm being a martyr or just humble, but I'm not. I'm not a good person. I know some of you, you're not either. And I know some of you are much worse than me, actually. I know some of you pretty well. And let me tell you about this experience about what kind of a wicked, depraved heart I have, and then you'll sit out there and go, oh, I have one of those too. So here it is. So a while back, I was at this gas station, and I was pumping gas in my car, and I look up, and there in the window of this gas station is this beautiful, beautiful sign. It says Powerball on it, all right? And I'm like, oh, it's beautiful. And right underneath of it, it said $300 million. And I'm like, I don't even know what $300 million, I don't even know what that means, but it's a lot, all right? So anytime I say $300 million, I hear music. I don't know why. But anyway, I normally don't buy Powerball tickets, but this time I felt like it was calling my name, like, Jim, come, and so I'm like, yeah, sorry. So I'm standing there pumping gas, and I'm thinking, I didn't really think, I prayed. I prayed, and my prayer went like this: Dear God, if you'd make me win the Powerball, all right? Has anybody else ever prayed that prayer? Okay, I just don't want to be like I'm the only one, all right? But my prayer is better than yours, and here's why. Is that I went, Dear God, if you make me win the Powerball, I'd give you 90%, and I just keep 10% for myself, because that's the kind of guy I am, all right? And it's kind of like a reverse tithe. And I'm standing there, I pump my gas, and I'm feeling pretty generous. I'm feeling really, really, really spiritual. As a matter of fact, another car pulled up to pump gas, and I didn't say this out loud, but I thought to myself, hey, I just gave Jesus $270 million, all right? And it's because I'm Pastor Jim. You should come to my church. Anyway, and so I'm feeling really, 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 really good. And then as I'm standing there, I started thinking to myself, let's see, $300 million. That's a lot, but then the government takes half. So that's just $150 million. And so that means, I did the math, that I would give Jesus $135 million, and I would just keep $15 million. Like, what's that? And so, right? This is how I work in here, all right? And with the dollars doesn't go as far as it used to, right? And the economy's in the toilet, and the mountain property that I want, that would eat up most of that. And so I start renegotiating my deal with Jesus, all right? I do, as I'm pumping gas. And so by the time that it took to fill up my gas tank, here's the deal I worked out with Jesus, is that I would keep $100 million for myself, and I would give him $50 million, which for the record is a lot of money, all right, to give Jesus $50 million. And he should be happy, because I didn't have to give him anything, but I'm a Christian, so he should be happy with a third. In Jesus' name, amen. So then I put my gas tank away. Now, I'm not a good person, but I don't think I'm the only one, right? Like, by show of hands, how many have ever made a deal with God and then tried to renegotiate it in the middle of it? This is an evil church. Sorry, so good. You're in the right place, all right? And it goes like this: Hey, God, if you'll do this for me, then I'll do this for you. I'll help you out over there. I mean, really, and again, you would never say this out loud because you look like a jerk, like I just did, but sometimes don't you think that God ought to go with your idea? Don't you think that God ought to take your advice? And sometimes when you do stuff for God, I think you ought to say thank you. Like thanks for helping me out. Like I didn't have to do anything, but I helped you out. There you go, God. You're welcome, all right? And that brings us to the series that we're talking about today. This God's lucky to have me attitude is the attitude of the guy that we've been looking at, who's having a conversation with Jesus over these last 2 weeks. Scott's been teaching us through this. We're in Luke chapter 10, looking at the same story again. Luke chapter 10, and this guy comes up to Jesus. He's been talking and kind of stands up and wants to ask Jesus some questions. Let's review real quick. Behold, a lawyer. This is a religious lawyer, not just like an attorney, but you could actually break religious rules and have to go to court, and they decide if you're going to hell or not. Okay, so it's one of those, all right? So a lawyer stood up to put Jesus to the test. And again, this guy was not trying to learn more about God or learn more about Jesus and be his follower. He's put a finger in Jesus' chest to try to prove that he was a fake. That's the test, all right? So to put him to the test, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? So the question is this, and we've had this question: what do I need to do to go to heaven? What do I need to do to be okay with God so that God doesn't hate me, whatever that is? What do I need to do to inherit eternal life? And I really think, and I can't prove this, but I really think that this guy, when he asked Jesus, what do I need to do to go to heaven? I really think he expects Jesus to look back at him and go, nothing. I mean, look at you. You're awesome. You've already done so much. You've done more than enough already, especially compared to everybody else in the room, these wannabes, but you're awesome. And by the way, I've already talked to my father, and off the record, we're lucky to have you. we're lucky to have you on our team. You could have done anything with your life, but oh, thankfully you became a Christian, and thanks for picking our side and all you've done to help God out. What do you need to do, silly? Get up here on the throne with me, all right? Rule the universe and see if I'm missing anything. We have these conversations with God like we're really helping him out. And I really think that's what this guy expected Jesus to look back and go, dude, you're awesome. You're perfect the way you are. Instead, here's what Jesus said, verse 26. Jesus said to him, well, what's written in the law? How do you read it? So, I mean, you're the expert. What's it say in the Bible? And the lawyer answered, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind. So love God with everything, and then love your neighbor as yourself. And then Jesus said to him, you've answered correctly. That is the right answer. Do this, and this is what Scott's been talking about the last couple weeks. Do this perfectly every day of your life and never make a mistake. Do it perfectly. Love God and love people perfectly, and then you'll be fine. You'll live. You'll be with God. But he, the lawyer, desiring to justify himself, again, I'm okay, all right, said to Jesus, and who is my neighbor? And that's where we're going to pick this up. Jesus now breaks out into a story. Now, you might want to write this down. Anytime Jesus starts to tell you a story, you're done. You're done. He's like, hey, I got a question for you. And Jesus says, let me tell you a story. Now, just hang it up, okay? Because Jesus is about to make a big point here. He doesn't have to, but because he loves this guy, he's going to tell him a story. Because what Jesus could have done is going, whoa, what do you need to do? You think you're perfect? You think you're spiritual? You think you've got it made? Oh, okay. Let's just look at your life. Maybe Jesus reaches in his pocket, pulls out a little notebook. Let's just look at your life because it's all written down right here. Like, how about high school? Remember that? All right? Remember that time your parents were out of town and then you got busted by the cops, but you lied your way out of it and they never found out about it? Guess what? God knows. Page 3, it's right there, right? Or how about prom? You want to go back to prom? No. Well, let's go back to prom, all right? You told that little girl that you loved her, and then you got a hotel room, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. You were out the door before she woke up. God wrote that down. It's got a paper clip on it. It's folded down. He loved that little girl. He's mad. He's mad, all right? So we're going to have a conversation about that. All right, remember college? What part? All of it, all right? All of it. That's why it took you 6 years, all right? All of it, all right? All of it. It's all on the list, 4 pages. It's college, all right? You want to keep going because your 20s were a disaster, right? And then, let's see, 2 DUIs in your 30s. What? Oh, that's in your past. Okay. Well, let's just talk about your present. How about this? Currently, your wife feels trapped in a loveless marriage for a good reason. You crushed your son's heart about 6 times this year alone simply because you didn't show up again. And honestly, your daughter is counting the days until she graduates and gets out of your house and some guy comes along and rescues her. You want to play by those rules? What do you need to do? Because you think you've got it made? Let's just talk about what you've already done. Right? See, if I was Jesus, I would have done what Scott suggested last week. I would have blown this guy out of the water. I would have said, oh, you think you're so self-righteous. You think you've got it, right? I would say, everybody pay attention, because this is what happens to self-righteous people. I have a different word in here. It freaked the sign language people out last hour. But anyway, I did. But yeah, I mean, really, you think constantly patting God on the head and throwing him a bone or a dollar here or there and cutting back on a sin here or there and then going, ooh, look at me, I'm so spiritually. Really? Everybody pay attention. Boom, and then just vaporize him. That's what I would have done. I'm not a good person, all right? Thankfully, Jesus isn't like Scott or me. He's better than us. And he's going to tell this guy a story, and he's going to tell us a story, not because he wants to put this guy in his place, but in hopes of rescuing him from the place that he's living out of and putting him in a better place that he can live out of, called grace. The whole point of the story is it's not about what you do and don't do. It's, can you live out of this place called grace? Forgiveness, love, a new chance. So here's the story that Jesus tells this guy to say, you want to know what you need to do? Let me just talk about what's really going on. Verse 30, all right? Here we go. Jesus replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now let's stop there, okay? We're just going to get through one verse today, all right? We're flying through the Bible, all right? So, and here's why we're going to go slow. There are several characters in the story that Jesus tells that I want to spend some time on this week and next week. And here's why. It's because last month we looked at this story that Jesus told about a farmer who went out to plant seeds, but it really wasn't about farming. Remember that? This is a story about a guy who's walking down a road, but it's not really about that. I mean, it is about this man, but really it's about us. You're going to be able to see yourself in this story going, I've walked down that road too, today, all right? And the purpose of him telling this story is the purpose of every story that Jesus tells. It's so that we will open our eyes and pay attention to what's really going on in our lives that's keeping us from living and experiencing the life that we need to live and that God created us to live, but something's standing in the way. And Jesus is saying, I'm offering you truth, and I'm offering you grace, and I'm offering you a better way. Hold on it. Let it take root in your life. In other words, Jesus doesn't tell stories to give us the smackdown. He could have. He's qualified to. He's telling us this story so that this guy and everyone in this room can be saved and healed from the disease and the condemnation and the situation that we find ourselves in that we don't even know we're in, but Jesus knows. See, Jesus knows that a day is coming, and some of us have already had that day. It's a really bad day. It's a really bad aha moment, but it comes and we realize that it's too late to change anything. It's too late. We don't get any more do-overs. We don't get another shot with him or her because they are gone. And that's a really, really, really horrible day when we realize that everything that we leaned our life against to take care of us in this life and to be okay with God, it's just not enough, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't satisfy. And eventually we'll stand before God, and all we'll have to offer him, and I quote, is a big pile of filthy rags going, is that good enough? Is that good enough to get me into heaven? And it won't be enough. So today, we're going to look at this first guy in the story. So verse 30, you're in the story, I'm in this story in some way. Look at this. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. So there's this guy. If I was writing this, there's this guy, and he was going down from Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, all right? And he was going down to this other city, which is downhill, several thousand feet, downhill to another city called Jericho. Now, I heard about Jericho when I was a little kid, all right? I got drugged off to vacation Bible school and Sunday school and every other school, camp, and everything like that. I learned about Jericho as a song. I really, really did, because the Israelites were captive in Egypt, then they went out in the desert and wandered around for 40 years, and they went through the Jordan River, and there's this big city called Jericho, and they're like, what do we do? And God says, march around it 7 times, blow a trumpet, and the walls fell down. Remember this? Joshua fit the battle of Jericho. You're welcome for that. Anyway, so even if you never heard of that story, all right, and I don't know why I told it to you, but anyway, here's what I want you to pay attention to in this story. Look at it again. The man was going what? Down. And that doesn't seem important, but it's very, very important. Like if you have your Bible, like circle the word down and put a line out to your margin. You're going to write something down in the margin of this. See, this man had been in Jerusalem. And the man that Jesus is telling the story to, this religious attorney, when he heard that, he knew that this man immediately made an assumption. The man had been in Jerusalem, which meant the man had been in the temple. See, the temple was built right in the middle of Jerusalem, the Jewish temple, and it was built on a hill, Mount Zion, in the middle of Jerusalem. And so all through the Bible, when anybody was going to the temple, test me on this or look it up yourself, but everybody goes up to the temple and then down from Jerusalem. Even if you lived in the mountains, you went up to Jerusalem or up to the temple, and then when you were done, then you went down, okay? It's just always like that. So if that's true, the man went down from, not just downhill, but down from Jerusalem. He'd been to the temple. And if that's true, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume if he walked all the way up a hill to go to the temple, he had something going on with God. He had some kind of relationship with God. Today, the story would be written to be something like this. On his way home from church, and you go, well, at least he was trying. You know, a lot of us are going, yeah, I'm just trying to be a good person, right? So maybe that is, maybe he's trying to follow God. I'm trying to be a good man, good woman, whatever that is. So you can really read this story this way. There was this man who was trying to live a good life. That would be a lot of us. I'm just trying to live a good life. That's why I'm here. I'm singing the songs. I'm here to hear some God stuff. All right, I'm trying to live a good life. Here's what happens to him. Keep reading. This man, he fell among robbers. He fell among robbers. And I think that fell is being too nice. I think Jesus is being nice there. And here's why. This man should not have been on the road in the first place. He should have known better. See, the road between Jerusalem and Jericho was famous, really infamous for murders and robberies. So if you go over there today, it's still like this. Between Jerusalem and Jericho, it's all canyons, like the Badlands, all right? And so there are all these caves and these curvy things that people can hide in and jump out and kill you. And that happened all the time. Back in Jesus' day, this road, I don't know if it's still like that, but the road had a nickname. It was called the Way or the Road of Blood because so many people had been ambushed and murdered on this road. Nobody traveled alone on this road, or they weren't supposed to. And everybody knew that. Everybody knows, you don't do that. If you go down that road from Jerusalem to Jericho by yourself, odds are something bad's going to happen, so don't do it. And the guy was a local guy, which means he knew what could happen on this road. He knew he shouldn't go down this road, but he did it anyway. Does that describe anybody in here? Right? I mean, I know I shouldn't do this. I'm just going to do it anyway. And maybe it wasn't even his fault. Maybe he had an emergency. Maybe he got a text message, get home, or I don't know, camel message, delivery. I don't know, all right? So get home, there's an emergency, and the quickest way to get back to Jericho was this road. And so he's like, I got to get home. That's the fastest route. I can't wait on anybody. And he just said, I got to go. We've all been there. I know I shouldn't do this, but it's an emergency. Normally I wouldn't do this, but I've got to do it this time. And then you go, all right? Maybe. I don't think that's what happened. I think he's more like me. I think he decided to play the odds. Cross his fingers and go, hope nothing happens to me this time. And maybe he thought, other people, they get killed, but I'll be really, 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 really careful. Nothing will happen to me. Maybe he'd gotten away with it. Maybe he'd gone down this road a couple times before and nothing happened the 2 times before this. So maybe he thought, it's not that big a deal. It's not that dangerous. And I don't think anything will happen to me this time. And guess what? He was wrong. He was wrong. It was a mistake. I'll just be really brutal. It was a stupid thing to do. Right? He should have known better. He should have known better. And I don't know how it worked back then, but if that same thing happened today, I'll bet when people got home from work that day and sat down to eat dinner and flipped on the news or however it worked, and they heard this, in local news, a man was stripped, beaten, and left half dead today on the road from Jerusalem down to Jericho, most people would not even have looked up from their dinner plate. They wouldn't have said anything. If they did, it would be something like this. Yeah, it was his own dang fault. Right? That's what happens to people like that. They should know better. It's just irresponsible. Kids, listen up. That's why we, and by we I mean good people like us, we don't do things like that. We don't go down roads like that. He got what he deserved. Pass the potatoes. And then they just went on with life. I mean, I've heard stuff like that all my life, haven't you? If you do bad stuff, then something's going to happen to you. Or if something bad happened to you, it's probably because you had it coming. Haven't you heard that? And the Christian community is the biggest one. Do you remember, some of you weren't alive here, but back in the 80s, do you remember this? The whole religious community got on this bandwagon. It went like this: AIDS is God's punishment on the homosexual community. And you just sit there and go, oh, please, people, don't listen to that. Don't listen. Or more recently, how about this? When that big tsunami hit Thailand and all that area, or even more recently when the hurricane hit Katrina, remember? Here came all those religious Christians and stuff like that who stood up and went, this is God taking out some evil parts of the world. And you just sit there and going, That's not how it works. And some of us are right now, we're shaking our heads when we hear that and we go, that's so stupid, that's just so ignorant. And it is, but be honest. Be really, really honest. Isn't it true that a lot of times, and I'd say most of the time, when our lives get hit with a tsunami or a hurricane or a storm or a flood or a robbery or cancer or a car, whatever that is, our first question, and really it's not a question, our first prayer is, why? And here's what we really go. What did I do that made this happen to me? Right? I mean, every one of us has prayed that. What did I do that's so bad that this landed on me, that caused this to happen to me? Right? Jesus was asked that one time, several times actually. Why do bad things happen to good people? I get asked that almost every week out in the lobby. Why do bad things happen to good people? And here's the thing, I don't know. And Jesus, when he was asked that question, he didn't answer. He wouldn't answer. And if anybody knew the answer, it would be Jesus. Instead, people said, hey, why did that bad thing happen to that good person? He just flipped it around and started asking questions back. He referred to some local examples of where it looked like some good people got hurt by a really bad situation. Situations that I'm sure back then, just like today, people sat around campfires and dinner tables and said stuff like this. Well, they must have done something bad, and God knew about it, and so he got him. They must have done something bad, and if you do something bad, then it comes around and gets you. That's not Jesus. That's karma. That's not Jesus. If you do, the world catches up with you. That's not in the Bible. For example, Jesus referred to this. He said some people went to the temple to worship God. That's a good thing to do. And while they're there worshiping God, some bad guys came in and murdered them, spread their blood all over to desecrate the temple. Do you think they were worse than anybody else? Or one time there was these 18 guys out, and they were building this tower, and the tower fell over on top of them. Do you think that those people were worse than the other people? Is that how you think it works? Do you think that God said, oh, I got to take care of him and him and him. I got 18 in one spot. Boom, I just took them out with one big swoop. Do you think that's how it works? And I think that when Jesus asked that question, the crowd looking back at him went, yeah. Yeah, I've been taught that in religious class all of my life. I've learned in the church, synagogue, whatever it is, that if you do bad stuff, then God's going to get you. Is that how it works? And Jesus looks back and goes, no, that's not how it works. But then he turns the question on him, and he says this, but what if that tower had fallen on you? What if the flood took your house away and your kid away? What would you do if the hurricane hits your life? What are you going to do when cancer hits your life? What are you going to do then? Will you be okay to have a conversation with God then? Will you be ready to meet God? Because before you start worrying about what everybody else should or shouldn't have done, he shouldn't have gone down that road. She shouldn't have slept with him. They shouldn't have done this. They should have done more of that, whatever that is. Before you start worrying about everybody's mistakes, or the way Jesus said it, before you start pointing out everybody's specks in their eyes, Why don't you pay attention to your own life and make sure that your life is headed in the right direction? Because if you don't, if you spend all your time worrying about, well, they shouldn't and they should have known better, he says, be careful because your life, something worse is going to happen to you. And here's why I tell you all that. See, Jesus is telling a story to a guy who Jesus knows. He knows what's going on in this guy's head. And one sentence into this story, he knows what this lawyer is thinking, and it goes like this. This is a stupid story. This is a dumb illustration because whatever happens to the guy on the road, he had it coming. He deserves it. It's a stupid thing to do. You shouldn't walk down roads like that. He shouldn't have been there in the first place. But instead of Jesus just zapping him and going, dude, you're the person I'm talking about. Instead, and this is what Scott's been talking about for the last couple of weeks, Jesus is trying to teach this guy and trying to teach us, be careful. Be careful before you go criticizing everybody else. Because we could all come up with, and if we couldn't, God could come up with a whole long list of places and examples in our lives where we should have known better. We should have gone left and we went right. And we should never have gone down that road, but we chose to anyway. Right? We all have a list. Or we have a list of other people's mistakes and bad decisions, and they fell on us. We've all fallen short of what God's told us to do. Right? So let's get back to the story. This is what happens to this guy when he made the mistake of going down this road. So we're going to look at what happened to him, see if any of this has ever happened to you, and if you really want to be honest today, see if you've ever done something like this to another person. So he's just trying to make it home, get from one point to the other, and he gets ambushed. And here's what happens to him. First, they stripped him. Look at verse 30. They stripped him. They didn't just take his money. You know, that would be bad enough. But if you get me out in the parking lot and say, Jim, give me all your money, I'll give you my money. But you know what? I can get more money. I can get more stuff. You break in my house and get my TV and stuff like that. I'll file an insurance claim. I'll have another one next week, all right? So you can take my stuff. That's not that big a deal. But that wasn't enough for them. No, they took everything from him, and they left him with absolutely nothing. It wasn't enough to take his money. They took his pride. They took his dignity. They embarrassed him. They humiliated him. They left him buck naked in the middle of nowhere, exposed, on his own. Have you ever had anybody do something that mean to you? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you kind of look around going, I have nothing left? They took everything important to me away. I have nothing left. And here's what makes it worse. Have you ever made the mistake of putting yourself in the position and thinking, I'll be fine. This is a good thing. In the back of your mind, it's not a good thing, but you go, no, it's a good thing. No, I think this is love. I think I'm in love, and so I'm gonna go ahead and do this. And then discovering the next morning, I got ripped off, and the thing or the part of you that is gone is never coming back. And here's what makes it even worse. You can't act like it bothers you. You have to be strong. Right? Because you know in the back of your mind, I shouldn't have done this in the first place, but I made a stupid decision and I got duped, all right? And now they're gone and it's gone and I can't ever get it back. And you're right now, you are acting, this is how you live your life. You're acting like it's no big deal, but inside, every time you look in the mirror, you just feel like an idiot. I just feel stupid. I'm so embarrassed. How could I have done that? Anybody? Or this is hypothetical, right? None of us ever found ourselves in that ditch. It's not over. I mean, that'd be bad enough, but not only does this guy get robbed naked, next, they beat him. They beat him. Somebody made a plan. Let's ambush him and then let's hurt him. Before this guy even showed up, there was a meeting. Here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to take all of his stuff. We're going to humiliate him. Right? And then we're going to make him suffer. We're going to hurt him. I want her to feel the pain, him to feel the pain. Not emotionally, not, psychologically. No, I want her body, his body to feel the pain. And some of you right now, you know what that feels like. Right? You're the ones that try not to run for the parking lot right now. You have the bruises and the scars as ongoing reminders of the beatings that you've taken. And honestly, while those punches hurt, right, what hurt the worst is that the person who was punching you is the person that was supposed to protect you. Remember that? It makes it worse. Isn't that the worst? And as you lie there trying to cover yourself up and defend yourself against the beating, remember this, the only thing going through your mind is, why? Why is he doing this? Or is she doing this to me? I thought they loved me. Why did I do that so bad that I would deserve a beating like this? I'm pretty sure that guy's laying in the ditch going, what did I do? What did I do that someone's going to hurt me this bad? Why do they hate me? And the guy's problem's not over. Look, then next, they left him. I got what I wanted from you, and I did what I wanted to you, and now I'm out of here. Piece of garbage. Ever been made to feel like that? Abandoned, left. Remember this is a great day. I'll be with you for better or worse till death do us part, as long as we both shall live. And that lasted about 10 minutes. And they lied and they left. Anybody been lied to? Ditched, left behind? I think those three things that happened to this guy describe the big three things that have left a lot of us in this room going, you know what? In a ditch, that's pretty descriptive. In progressive order, we lost our stuff. Somebody ripped us off. We lost our health. Somebody hurt us, beat us. We lost our relationship. Somebody lied to us and walked out and left us. And some of us, we got ambushed by it. This makes us feel even stupider, right? We didn't even see it coming, and that's bad enough. But again, here's what makes it even worse. Some of us voluntarily walked down that road and put ourselves in that position, and I knew I shouldn't have done it, but I rolled the dice and did it anyway. And now here's my life. I'm naked. I don't have anything. I'm hurting. I got physically beaten, and I'm all by myself. In a ditch. It's a pretty good description of big chunks of our life. And here's the thing about this, though, all right? So I'm reading this, and I've always used that term. They left him on the side of the road in a ditch. And in a ditch is pretty descriptive, but it's actually not even in there. You know, if you actually read it, in the ditch, it's not even in the story. Scott used it last week. I've used it several times this week. The phrase that Jesus actually used in the story is even better. Look at this. Look back at verse 30 one more time, and then we'll get out of here. But Jesus replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him what? Leaving him what? Now, as I'm reading that in my office, and I don't know how many, maybe thousands of times I've heard or read this story in my whole life. But you know what jumped out at me this time when I read that little phrase? Hope. You say, what do you mean? Some of you are going to connect the dots, right? The man in the story was half dead, which also meant he was still what? He's still half alive, right? Right? He got ripped off, he got beaten up, he got left to die, but he wasn't dead. Not yet. He's only half dead. See, the story's not over. We're going to stop here, but we'll pick it up next week. But pretend like you never heard this story before. All right? And that's hard for some of you. Some of you are going, I don't know. Tell me what happens next. I'll go home and read it. But if you don't read ahead, you don't know what happens in the next 10 minutes in this guy's life. I mean, if the man stays where he is, and if nothing changes, and if nobody helps him, then yeah, here's the story. In a few minutes later, he was fully dead. The way of blood strikes again. He's just dead, all right? But maybe, this is where we're going to go next week, but maybe if something were to happen, maybe if something were to change in his situation, and here's a long shot, all right? And this is way out there. Maybe if somebody were actually to help him, stop and help him, then maybe this story could take a very different direction than the way it's gone so far. So, every once in a while, I'm out in the lobby. This happens almost every week. It's happened several times this weekend, but you guys will come up to me and you'll start telling me your story. That's why I stand out there. I want to hear your stories. But some of you, I listen to your stories and I'm going, are you serious? Are you serious? And they go like this, somebody hurt me, somebody left me, somebody did this to me, I'm all alone. And then eventually that story will sometimes end up like this. Jim, I can't do this anymore. I'm done, I can't do it. I'm dying. And in my mind I'm sitting there going, I don't even know how you're still alive. I've heard some of your stories and I'm sitting here and I'm going, how are you still breathing? Because if that happened to me or happened to my kids or happened to me, I don't know what I would do. I really, really don't. So here's the best thing I can come up with when you tell me I can't do this anymore. Here's what I say. You're still here. That's all I got. You're still here. You're still standing. You're not dead. Not yet. And you can see things going on and say, yes. And as long as you're still here and as long as you're still alive, as long as you have one more day and one more step and you're able to take one more breath, you know what? There's still hope. There's still hope. And even though that's true, something still needs to happen in your life. And something needs to change, be different. And you need somebody to help you. You need, and I need, this is what we need. We need somebody who loves us enough to stop on that dangerous path and go, I can actually help. I can help you. Who would do that? Who would do that? And of course, the answer I'm going to say is Jesus, which is the right answer. Somebody going, yes, Jesus, you're right? And that's where we're going to pick it up next week, all right? So I'm going to stop, but I'm going to ask you a question. This is a good one. Can you hold on a little bit longer? I don't know what you're going through. God does and you do. Can you just hold, can you take another breath? Can you get out of bed tomorrow morning? Can you make it one more day, maybe one more week, and ask Jesus to help me, because I don't have anything left. Move me from half dead to more alive, maybe fully alive or alive again. I got an email this morning from a lady who came to church here last night. And the email was this. I came to church for my last time coming to church because I was going to commit suicide last night. And she emailed me this morning to say, I'm half alive. I'm alive. See, can you hold on? Can you hold on and can you ask, Jesus, will you bring me back to life? Because I've read the Bible several times. I really have, all right? And apparently, here's what I've discovered. One of Jesus' specialties is resurrection. He's really good at it. He can bring dead stuff, half dead stuff, fully dead stuff back to life. And so my question is this, and if you can answer that question is, yeah, if Jesus will help me, then I can keep going. That's awesome. Hang on to him. And when you can't hang on to him, he'll hang on to you. But the purpose, the point of the story, or takeaway is this. If Jesus not only is willing to help you do that, but actually Jesus has already done everything for you so that you can be alive, you just got to accept him into your life and let him be what he is to you and give you strength. Here's the question. Is it possible, could you or would you allow God to use you and what you've gone through to actually help somebody else who's half dead and lying in a ditch? Could God use your life for something good? And see, and again, here's all the conversations you're having in your head. You're sitting there going, I don't know. I can't help anybody. I'm a mess. I'm a mess. I can't even help myself. I'm not strong enough. I'm ready to quit. See, Jim, you don't understand. Again, this is what you're thinking. I know, all right? You don't know what happened to me, what I'm facing, what I'm going through. Nobody understands how hard and painful my life really is. Nobody understands. Nobody? Nobody. Nobody understands your pain. I'll give you this. Nobody in this room does. But nobody? I'm going to call you on that one. See, listen to this and see if this brings anybody to mind. And they were striking his head with a reed, that's a stick. And they were spitting on him and kneeling down in homage to him. And when they'd mocked him, they stripped him of his purple cloak and put his own clothes on him, and they led him out to crucify him. And they crucified him and divided his garments among them, casting lots for them to decide what each should take. See, I know somebody. It's not me. I know somebody who can honestly look at you and say, I've been there, I have felt that, it happened to me too. I get it, I understand. And you know what, it's Jesus. See, they tried to steal his dignity and make him feel like a dirty criminal. People try to do that to you. You're nothing, you're a piece of garbage, right? They punched him, they whipped him, they spit on him, they beat him with sticks till the muscles on his back poked through the ripped, bloody flesh. Some of you've had that beating. They stripped him naked. They paraded him naked in front of the whole crowd, and they laughed at him and pointed at him and made fun of him. They pounded nails through his flesh, and then they left him to die. And while he was dying, they played poker to see who would take his shirt home as a souvenir. Jesus gets it. He understands what it means to be walked away from and left for dead. But then Jesus doesn't stop there, though. Jesus turns to you and says this. He says, the same power that brought me back to life, resurrected me, brought me back and gave me a new life, that same power is available to everybody in this room who will ask him for it right now in this moment. There's still hope for you. But something needs to change. Something needs to happen in your life, and you need to ask Jesus to help you.